You ready?
Yeah, ready when you are.
Cool. Hello, guys. Welcome to the first episode of the Wave Running Podcast. I did a little trailer that was like 90 seconds long a few days ago, but this is the first official episode. It's a great honor to have Luke join me for the first episode. He's pretty experienced in podcasts. He has his own podcast called With the Chiefs Running Podcast, and he has some pretty handy PBs, which I'm going to try and recite from my head, which are 5K in 15:48 at Rose Park Run in December 2022, 10K in 32:52 at Sydney 10 in May 2022, half marathon in 72:44 at the Canberra half. I forgot what month the Canberra was. Well, what month was that?
Gee, you're testing me. I can't even towards the I think it was just after Melbourne, like maybe a month after. Yeah.
Yeah. And then the
So
marathon in 2:36:49 at Melbourne Marathon, also in
mate.
2022. So,
Yep. Nailed
yeah,
them all, mate.
cool. Well, looks like 2022 was an amazing year for you, and we'll get more onto that later. But to quickly kind of get the viewers to know you, can you tell us a bit about like how you got into running and how long you've been doing it for and stuff?
Yeah, sure. So in preparation for this, thanks for letting me know this question was coming because I had to track back. I feel like I feel like sometimes once you get in the routine of running, you kind of lose track. How long you've been doing it for. But I I think I started around like late 2018, just checking from Strava. I saw a few um I saw a few runs being tracked. I mean, it was just sort of 4Ks every now and then, but I guess the reason I started, like I always was doing runs here and there, and I played soccer during school, was quite active. Actually did not much cross country, but I remember cross country because of how painful it was essentially, especially especially being younger. And I think especially compared to other sports, like just intense running hurts quite a lot when you're not used to it basically. But I guess when I started taking it a bit more seriously, I was finishing uni, I was working in retail and sort of just being really just partying, being quite unhealthy. And then I got back in touch with, I'd always been friends with Dom, who you know, and who does the podcast with me. But yeah, he kind of just said, let's go for a run. Let's go for a run. Um, and we did. And then, yeah, I saw it as a good way to get in a bit of shape and clear my head and those sorts of things. Not that I didn't enjoy partying, but once you do it a lot, it starts to get a little bit much. So you're looking for a healthier option. So yeah, that was about 5 years ago, and then yeah, started doing running, and then it was right up until Sunrun 2019 is when we started taking it a bit seriously. Me and a mate from school decided we were going to do it and try and break 45 minutes. And that was the first big goal. And then pretty much after that, I got semi addicted to it essentially.
Yeah, well, your progression is pretty insane. Like I thought I was gonna hear an answer where you started earlier than 2018, but it's actually pretty impressive how quickly you got into those PBs because all four of those PBs are, super solid. People
Yeah.
take like a lifetime to get to that or never even get to it ever. So it's quite impressive what you've done. But I think one of the key factors that helped you get there was that you had Dom right from the beginning,
Oh, mate,
and
it's
he's an
like
amazing runner, obviously.
I always joke, I always joke that he's gonna send me a cheeky invoice for all his coaching services because, um, essentially he helped me structure, structure a program. He's an experienced runner. He was an experienced runner before I started, so he sort of had been through coaching, a few squads and was helping me skip a lot of the mistakes that runners make. Obviously, I had to get my own experience and make my own mistakes, but he helped me schedule a program, made sure I didn't try and start running 80Ks a week straight away. And we were training together. We were just training together a lot alongside one of my other friends, Adrian. And yeah, that added to obviously a quick progression, because we got straight into sessions once. I think there was probably, off the top of my head, maybe like six months of, call it base building, but I didn't really know what that was back then. It was just sort of getting used to running and not feeling like, your body has to adjust to it when you first start, and you just build up slowly. But yeah, very lucky to have Dom as a friend, and I think it was responsible for a lot of that quick progression.
Yeah, 100%. And you know how there's that saying where you're the average of the 5 people that you hang out with most?
Yep.
Like, did you have any other people around you that also feel like, kind of elevated you to that level a lot quicker than a typical beginner that's getting into the sport that doesn't know a runner like Dom? Were there other people?
I think initially my mate Adrian, the competitive aspect of training for a race really helped. Like, I know we were 45 minutes back then was like uncharted territory, and obviously it was still very exciting to go after that. So I think it was really the three of us.
Right.
And we also had one of my other friends, Daniel, from school. We all went to school together. Oh, sorry, didn't go to school with Adrian. I actually went to primary school with Adrian, but anyway. Yeah, we had a bit of a group, but from a taking it more seriously point of view, it was really just Dom, I would say,
Yeah.
initially.
And along the 5 years, you probably had like a few coaches here and there. Because right now you're
Yeah.
with Sally, I believe, or
I'm just doing my own program at the moment. You can probably
okay.
tell when my running started to get up and down a bit, which is when I
Mm,
stopped getting coaching. But yeah, I had I was training with Sally for about a year, and I think that's when I saw a lot of my bigger breakthroughs, because I was plateauing for a little bit. I seemed to have, like, when I started, there was a period of about like a year and a half where I went from zero to like 35. I think it was 35:17 in the 10K. So I saw like a really sharp progression. And initially you just you keep knocking over your PBs. And I think at the beginning it's really exciting, because you just typically improve quite quickly. But then after a while, progression slows down, I would say. Like the journey of going from like 45 minutes to 35 minutes, you can sort of put in a good, for me at least, I put in a good block of training, and I managed to get there relatively quickly. But then progressing from 35 down to like just under 32 was an absolute mission. Well, it's just a lot more training, and the gains get smaller. But yeah, when I got to that, after that plateau, to vary my training, I was coached by Sally, and her program was amazing. And I feel like I don't think I would have ducked under 75 minutes in the half, or run anywhere near as well as I did if I wasn't on that program.
Yep. From what I understand, I hear that Sally is quite into looking at power as a metric as opposed to like other stats that a lot of
Yeah.
people are interested in, maybe heart rate, pace, or whatever. I kind of
Yes.
don't look at any of them most of the time, but talk a bit more about that. And I think I heard this from Nico, who was also getting coached by Sally at
Yeah.
one point. But yeah, have you been told about the story behind why she likes looking at power or?
I don't know that specific, but the reason I got coached by Sally is we had Nico on the podcast, and he was training for the marathon, and he suggested we get Sally on, and then we had Sally on. And I was just very, very interested and impressed with the whole methodology behind that training. And I just thought I'd reach out and see if Sally was taking on athletes. And yeah, it's very different, but the same. Like, it's a lot more of a focused approach using power. I think it correlates well, from what I learned at least. You can train in specific zones a lot more. So when we're doing threshold training, you could be a bit more specific, which I think helped. So it's just meant to be a lot more accurate. And obviously Sally did a lot of the work behind it. And all I did was check the watch and make sure I was within my power and make sure I was hitting my workouts. But Yeah, definitely another big thing, because I was always self coached, and after a while you start doing the same sessions and you're not like, I guess you're not really varying the training stimulus a lot. So, getting a coach and having someone that's looking at it a little bit differently definitely helps. And yeah, I saw that in the results for sure.
Yeah, 100%. And I think one other thing that we've touched on once, I think it was when I went on your podcast, was that with power, it also takes into account the hills and stuff. So if you're slower on the hill,
Yeah,
you're still gonna have a higher power, or like the same power as
yeah.
like a faster pace on the flat. So I think that also helps, and maybe that's another reason why Sally was putting focus on power. Um, but
Yeah.
I'm sure you had to wear those like stride pods or something, right?
Yeah,
Right,
you had to
to
wear the
measure.
stride pod. The stride pod. I lost two of them now, unfortunately. Just if a pro,
Yeah,
just a tip for anyone, make sure that it's strapped on the laces properly, because that's a rookie error that I made. But yeah, you have to wear a little pod. I find like it was quite accurate, and you're right. When you're doing efforts on heels and stuff like that, it's helpful not to blow yourself up, because especially you can put out so much power on the heels. And obviously, if you look at the watch and it's say you're running 330s in a threshold and you're going up a hill and it's like 350s or 345s, if you try and run 330s, obviously you just, yeah, the effort's much higher, but there's still the tendency to keep the pace the same. So I think power just holds you back a bit and keeps you in that zone.
yeah. Let's talk a bit more about our PBs now, because we
Okay.
actually have pretty similar PBs, which is pretty cool. Because our 5K and 10K PB are from the exact same race, aren't they?
Yeah.
Roach Parkon and
Oh
Sydney
yeah, yeah.
10.
Yeah, I think
Yeah, there you
yeah,
go.
well, when I broke 16 in the 5K, I wasn't expecting to, for sure. And I think we've had quite a few races at Rhodes where we worked together in the initial stages, and then you sort of always run away with it. But yeah, that race was special. Um, I don't know where the energy came from and why still at 3K I was feeling okay as well, like running the paces, because normally I would have blown up at that point, because I'd run 16:15 and 16:14 almost like a metronome on at Rhodes, and then out of nowhere just yeah. But yeah, we've had some good races there. How was it for you?
Yeah, we touched on this in more detail on your podcast, obviously. So
Oh, I
check
don't
out
even
With the
remember
Chiefs
what we
Running
said.
podcast.
I forget everything I say on
uh,
podcasts, to be honest.
well, you do a lot of them. This is my first one, so
Yeah,
I
yeah.
haven't done as much, so I can remember a bit better. But yeah, like we both touched on, like we felt this insane energy that day, because maybe it was
Mm.
just the people that were there. Because we had Leo Peterson, very high caliber athlete. We had, Anthony Ritchie, a
Yeah.
lot of the Delta guys as well, Josh Keys, and a lot of the women that are really quick there as well. We also had Otto with us for a little bit. We had Ian. It was just
Yep.
a stacked race that's never been, that stacked before, because
Yeah.
the Parker. But yeah, I think just feeding off of everyone's energy that day really helped everyone lift. And yeah, I still can't believe I ran 15:40 that day as well. It's just insane
Yeah.
to think about, because I haven't managed to run that time, for a while now, even though I've attempted so many 5Ks since that day. Yeah, something must have just gone right on that day. And
It
hopefully another
was,
day like that will come soon. Yeah.
if you're, I'm not a overly, I don't know if it's like a spiritual thing where the gods were looking down, the running gods were looking down on us that day, because I remember I talked about it at a Delta session as well. And I think Josh brought it up, and we were sort of just talking about like everyone just had such a good race. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know, but I'll take it. That's for sure. I think I asked a few times, like, I just couldn't believe I ran 15:48, but yeah, it happened. So we'll take it.
Yeah. And like Luke said, we attempted to do self-sustain so many times.
Yeah.
Not just at roads, but other, track races and stuff as well. Or at least I did. And it was a huge journey to get there. So like doing that really meant a lot for both of us. And just to do it
Yeah.
on the same day meant a lot as well. And it was the
Yeah.
end of the year too. It was in December, on the 3rd of December actually. And
Yeah.
yeah, it was just a good way to kind of cap off what had been a great calendar year for both of us, because all our PBs are from 2022, literally.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
you did
Yeah.
your first 3K as well, so you set a PB,
Oh yeah,
even though we
that was I think I ran faster in the 5K pace wise. Yeah,
yeah, we
which was
talked about it.
interesting.
Yeah, our 3K split in the 5K was faster than our 3K race that Luke and I did. But that's another race where we both, came first and second in.
Yep.
So yeah, we've actually had a fair amount of good races together because I haven't known you for that long. Like we actually
Yeah.
met about 1 year ago because we met at Sydney 10, which is the 1st of May last year.
Yeah,
So
that's right. Yeah, I remember
yeah,
trying to
I've only
chase.
known
I
you
remember
for
trying
a
to
year.
chase you in that. Yeah,
Yeah.
that was another big race.
Yeah.
That was a breakthrough race as well.
Yeah, for both of us. I mean, we both cracked the 33-minute barrier for the first time. And it was a huge PB for both of us because I jumped
Mm.
from 35 minutes all the way down to 32, 42 at once.
Yeah.
But what was your margin of PB? Like, what was your PB
Um,
before that?
I think I ran 34. I think I ran 34 like 15 at Sydney Harbour 10. So it was a pretty big jump, and I wasn't expecting to run that, but that's when I started getting coaching with Sally and taking the structure more seriously. And I think I ran like sub 75 before that race in Canberra. So I knew I was like my fitness was improving. But yeah, I think that was another one of those races where everything clicks. And the effort doesn't feel as crazy because definitely had 10K races where it feels like absolute death or almost from like 3K. But Sydney 10 for some reason didn't feel like that. I think I had a lot not had a lot in the tank. I felt good to about 7K and then just gave it everything.
Yeah, well, the caliber of runners in Sydney 10 just speaks for itself, right? Because
Yeah.
I checked the stats recently again, and I think I used to say 250, but it's actually, if you came 350th place in that race, you would have only ran 39:59.
Yeah, it's
So
crazy.
yeah, 350 people breaking the 40-minute barrier, which is a huge barrier in running.
Yeah,
Um,
everyone's there.
in one
Everyone
race. Yeah.
it's like the big 10K race that everyone does. I think
Yeah.
we actually have it on coming up. Yeah,
In
there's
2
just
days.
everyone there in 2 days. Yeah. So
Yeah.
it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting for sure.
Yeah, best of luck. I'm excited to see what some people run. I'm
Yeah,
sure I have a lot of friends racing it, and yeah, it'll be cool to see them do big PBs because that is the race to PB. Like, there's no other
absolutely.
race like it. Just because I had company the whole way, and it was so easy for me as well. It's all the good races. It's yeah, all my PBs have been like surprisingly comfortable, which is insane. Because
Yeah.
when
I
I
don't
don't
know.
PB, I struggle. Yeah.
I don't know. There's so many. Yeah, I think touching on like what you said with the 5K, is there's so many of those 16, 15s that I ran, and maybe you had a similar experience that just hurt so much more. Like just, and it was nowhere near. And I thought I was in similar sort of shape. And sometimes, I always try and find out what it is. It's like how much caffeine did I drink, or like I don't know,
Yeah.
I tried something, but you never know. You never know. You never know.
Yeah, I think it's just a combination of like everything going right on a special day. So it's
Yeah.
hard to like pinpoint exactly what it is because I try all the time when I have a good race to look back and see what I did right, what I did wrong, but there's no like pattern that comes up. So yeah, it's
I
hard to
think,
tell. But
do you reckon that's what makes it special then when it just clicks? Because it's just can go wrong so
yeah,
many times.
yeah, yeah, like most of the time it's not going to go well, but like the one time where everything falls into place, like the weather and your legs feeling good and you're mentally sharp and you have the
Yeah.
company from other athletes, yeah, I think it makes it special because there's so many odds that have to go in your favor for you to have a good race. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think I can appreciate when that happens. And yeah, I hope that day comes again soon for all my distances because I'm ready for another big season. I don't want this to be a disappointing season. Even though it's been a bit of a slower start for both of us this year, I think, just
Yeah.
because you've taken a bit of time off, which I do want to touch on in a second.
Sure.
But before we do, just for the 10K PB, you said you did a lot of half marathon training for it as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, were you doing some like long run workouts and stuff, or what did your training kind of look like?
Um, I think oh geez, I think that's when we started doing, from memory, we started doing a lot more work at threshold, which, so I think we're doing like 2K reps, also doing VO2 max stuff as well. And then long runs, I don't think we're too crazy then, because um, we were then going to shift towards Gold Coast as the focus. But I remember doing the workouts a lot more specific. So I think, yeah, because I used to think before I was getting coached by Sally, I used heart rate as a metric, and I would sometimes try and keep within a certain heart rate range for my threshold, for example, which I think maybe held me back a little bit because you worry too much about it. And also I found sometimes you might not run hard enough because you're like sort of, there's many variables for heart rate. And I think once I started creeping above 180, I would sort of back off. So when I was using power, I think I did a slightly harder workouts, and keeping a bit more accurate. But it's one thing is it's really hard to tell what moves the needle in running. But that training stimulus over that period of time really helps. So if you want to check my Strava, you can find the workouts there. But I think it was 2K reps, 7 minute 7 minute reps as well at threshold, and VO2 max stuff. So like 500, 600 meter repeats, but much, much harder.
Yeah, I always find threshold training to be interesting and a tricky one to work with, just because, like you said, your heart rate, might hold you back sometimes, or it might just give you a false indicator sometimes. And
Yeah.
yeah, I think at the end of the day, the most accurate way for sure is just to have your finger pricked during the workouts, but
Yeah,
only
yeah, yeah.
pros can have access to that sort of, technology and funding. So you kind of have to just go by feel at the end of the day, I feel like,
Yeah,
which is
yeah.
what I've been doing, because I don't even have a heart rate monitor. So I think I just, yeah, try and work out in my head what pace is relatively comfortable, what I can hold for roughly an hour. And then I try not to push beyond that pace in
Mm.
my threshold workouts. So yeah, tricky one to work around, but I think if you get it ballpark in the right area, you'll improve anyway. So yeah,
Yeah,
I think that's my take on threshold.
I think you learn. I think looking back when I was heavily monitoring heart rate, I think I should have just gone a little bit more on feel like you do. Like you kind of get a sense for the pace you should be running at threshold after you do quite a bit. So power's quite accurate, which is good, but then you still within that you could be like sort of fatigued, or you could be feeling a little bit slower. So I think mixing it in with going by feel. Sometimes I have the tendency to look at the watch too much or focus too much on the metrics. I think more recently I've just tried to focus on going a little bit more on feel, which a guy that I train with a lot, Tobias, is very much about running on feel as well. So there's always it seems to be a balance between the metrics and just trusting yourself as well.
Yeah, heart rate can vary so much throughout a day.
Yeah.
Like it depends on how much you slept, what you ate that morning, and your stress levels and that sort of stuff. So yeah, it's not always good to be dwelling over heart rate. But
Yeah.
yeah, moving on a bit towards the recent, I guess, little hiatus that you've taken. Do you
Yeah.
want to talk a bit more about like why you took it and whether you thought it was
Yeah.
beneficial? Because I think it's something that a lot of people should hear about.
Okay. I don't even remember when it starts. So it was um I was just like obviously my training was very structured. And then I go through these stages where I'm very motivated to train. So I would say like 2022, I was very motivated to train. I was on a program. I was super, super focused on running Gold Coast and Melbourne, which Gold Coast went really well. Melbourne, I learned a bit of a lesson, but it was still a good race. But during that whole time, I felt like, I don't know if it's the same for you, but you kind of just feel like the effort to train. There's not a lot of mental effort to train. You kind of just going with the flow, and you're excited to do workouts, but not obviously not all of them, you're thrilled by, but you are excited to train and work towards a goal. And then like towards the end of the year, I just you lose a little bit of motivation, I think, which is only natural for me. Like I've been training for 5 years, and I feel like I've gone through these cycles almost every year. And I think I used to get a lot more worried about, oh, I'm not liking this anymore, those sorts of things. But now I think I just try and be a little bit kinder on myself, and just like, this is where I'm at the moment, and not try and force it too much. Because I have tried to, in the past, just kind of like force yourself to train, and like, no, you just got to have discipline. But sometimes I don't think it helps, because at the end of the day, you want to be doing it because you're enjoying it ultimately. And yeah, so I've had to develop my relationship with running a little bit better. And I think at the end of the day, I do want to be doing it because we love the sport. And obviously it connects us with runners and all those sorts of things. So, but yeah, in terms of, that was of course me waffling on, but in terms of the hiatus, I took time not taking it as seriously, just jogging, trying to do sessions. I think there were quite a few sessions I was doing that I wasn't finishing, and I was feeling really hard. It was feeling difficult to get through them. I think even we did, when did we do those 1K reps? That was a while ago.
Yeah, I don't remember. I think it was a bit before the state 5K. So would
Yeah.
it be like February or that sort of thing?
Yeah. Actually, yeah,
February.
that's jogging
Yeah.
my memory. So it was before the state 5K. Yeah, you just feel a little bit flat, and like you're not willing to. Everyone knows that 1K reps are really, really difficult, and you got to be in the zone. Yeah, so I just decided after state 5K, I think it was, just to take it a little bit easy, not think too much about running. And then I got a little bit like, I get into a different mode of, I just want to enjoy my life. I don't think I'm going to do this running thing that seriously anymore. And then I took that mentality a bit too much. And then, you start neglecting running. I was still doing a bit of partying. I took a year off drinking last year, but then I sort of went back a little bit, because I think sometimes when you take things, for me at least, when I take things too seriously, there's a tendency to then go flip on the other side and be like, oh, it doesn't matter at the end of the day, just, enjoy yourself. So I find myself ping-ponging between these states sometimes, which again, I don't know. I hope it's natural, because that's what I do quite frequently. But yeah, I think struggling with it a little bit made me appreciate it a bit more now, because now I'm motivated again to train. So yeah, I did that for a little bit, and then I don't know where it comes from, but the energy and the motivation to run just comes back for me. So yeah, I think about like a few weeks ago, I think maybe because like we get back to races as well, and you have the goal of the race that sort of anchors you. But it's a hard one to describe. I hope I sort of answered the question a little bit.
No,
But
for
yeah,
sure.
do you have sort, because I know your training's quite consistent. So I took my recent hiatus was all over the place. Like I haven't been doing long runs properly. Still training, but yeah, what's your 2 cents on that in terms of going up and
Yeah.
down?
I mean, I think the last thing I want people listening and like my viewers of the YouTube channel to think is that, we don't go through these sorts of ups and downs. Like
Yeah.
we're talking about runners our level, running sub 16. Like we definitely go through phases of motivation and not being motivated. So I think that's quite normal, but people experience it to different extents, because for me, I think it happens in smaller cycles. So when I don't feel motivated, it would last like a day or two and then I'll be back.
Mm.
So in the long term things, like when you look at the bigger picture, it looks like I've never stopped running, right? Because I might have one
Yeah.
day where I only ran 86 Ks, where I took 2 days off because I wasn't motivated, but I still ran 86 Ks that week, which is definitely
Yeah.
not nothing. Um, so I think that's why people don't notice as much that I go through a lot of those cycles
Yeah.
where sometimes I'm not motivated, sometimes I am. But I think you need a bit of time off sometimes to realize that you like something, right? So
100%.
I think
Yeah.
having time off running is going to help in the long term because you want to be in the sport for years rather than
Yeah.
like burn yourself out and then not come back for 5 years. So I think what you did was pretty sensible. And
Mm.
yeah, I don't see it as a bad thing at all. If you need a break, you need a break, and your
Yeah.
body will tell you and your mind. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Absolutely. I think one other thing I'll say is yeah, if you what I experience is when I try and stop running, um I always eventually feel a gravitation towards going back to it. That's my experience. Like even when I get in a slightly negative mindset where I'm like, oh, I'm sick of this running thing. What are we doing this at the end of the day? Training so much, it's ridiculous. Then I come away and you have a bit of time and you're like, no, I actually really like running. So that's I don't know. I always gravitate towards that. And then obviously when you're running with a good group of people, like recently I've been running a lot more with Delta, which just makes it so much more fun. And I think I've been running with people most of the time. Like I run heaps with Tobias. Um, yeah, and I just feel like when I'm going through a down cycle in motivation, I try not to like beat myself up. Like it's all good. Just write it out, or if it's not time to continue running, maybe it's not time to continue running. But like you said, your body and your mind will sort of tell you. Yeah.
yeah, 100%. And you touched on a bit of Delta, which I want to talk about as well, because
Yeah.
I think Delta is such a cool club. And
Yeah.
I think both of us are not officially part of it. Well, at least I'm definitely not officially a Delta member, but
Yeah.
Jerome is always, welcoming. He allows me to join the sessions, which I really appreciate. And
Yeah.
I think Delta is pretty special just because there's so many runners around our level, which you don't get in any other club.
Yeah.
Because I think people are either faster than us or like newer to running. So
Yeah.
I feel like it's pretty hard to find that group of people at our level where we're like right under elite level, or I just consider myself a sub elite runner, but yeah,
Yeah.
it's always hard to find people around our level to do workouts and long runs with. But just
Yeah.
having people like Lockie Oaks, Matt Gore, Jack Hillier, Ryan Fisher,
Yeah.
Dom, you, me, I'm sure there's more, Anthony Ritchie and all that. Like it's just so good to have all of us at Go Hill sending it on a Tuesday morning and pushing each other
It's
because
yeah.
yeah, it helps.
Yeah, it's so much fun. I think initially I wasn't when I started getting coaching, I was not 100% involved, but more recently just what Tuesday sessions at Gore Hill, like you said, is so much fun just because there's always someone around you. I find that everyone now is sort of training towards similar races as well, which makes a difference. And there's always people you can do a session with. Even recently on Sunday, I was out with Matt and Chris Gatt and Tobias, and the long runs are so much more fun. I forgot how good those group ones are when you're all training together. But yeah, it's funny because it's a serious group of runners, but it's not as serious as some squads. Like it's very, like you said, Jerome's very welcoming and everyone's very welcoming. And it's just a great energy. That's the thing I find.
Yeah,
It's just great
100%.
energy. Yeah, and it's something about getting a bunch of runners in the room, just talking, running, and like loving the same thing, which is
Yeah.
yeah, it certainly helps to stay motivated. That's for sure.
Yeah, I definitely miss chasing Alex Shaw
Oh
at Go Hill
yes,
Oval.
that
I
was
know
so
it's pretty
good.
tough clinging on to him, but I definitely miss that
Yes,
because I think
that's
he pushed me a lot. Yeah. And
yeah,
yeah, the women of Delta are really inspiring as well. Like there's
yeah,
so many
absolutely.
fast women in Delta. Like Laura Reed's absolutely insane. Yeah. And
Yeah,
all the other lovely ladies, Orly, and Amy and all those guys.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah,
I
yeah.
think
Absolutely, it's
Delta's going to do
good
pretty well
mix.
this year. Yeah,
Absolutely, absolutely, and I think yeah, it's just such an important part. Yeah, I love it. I love it.
100%. Yeah, and I also wanted to touch a bit on something you brought up in your podcast, which
Hmm.
we talked about off camera a little bit, but yeah, you mentioned on the podcast with Orly that you had like a bit of nerve damage in your shoulder that's
Yeah,
affected your gait a little bit, but yeah, I think it'll be cool to talk about it if you're open to it, which I obviously made sure beforehand. But
yeah, yeah, yeah. Of
um,
course, of
yeah,
course.
it'll be sick to hear more about it and maybe know if it's affected your progression as a runner or not really. I feel like it hasn't because you run some pretty good times, and I think your upper
Yeah,
body doesn't matter as much when you're doing longer distance. Obviously, for sprinting, it might, but yeah.
yeah, yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. So I don't think I've talked about it much even on the
Yeah.
podcast, other than mentioning it. So it was a
Mm,
good pickup. But you could probably so I had nerve damage to my left shoulder from it's actually a birth injury. And yeah, pretty much just affected the growth of my arm and also some of the movement. So I was um very lucky to have parents who could sort of do a lot of physical therapy when I was young, because I think that makes a difference. If you look up some kids that have nerve damage, the arm can get like really just stuck and not actually move properly at all. So
mm.
compared to a lot of people with similar nerve damage, I actually have very good range of motion. Um, yeah, in the left arm. In terms of running, that's why I kind of loved running a little bit, because you didn't have to use the arm a whole lot, because it affects a little bit of coordination. I can't turn my wrist properly, those sorts of things. So um distance running was good because you just it's all legs, mate. It's all legs. Um, but yeah, I only feel it affects when I'm doing like fast 200-meter reps or something like that. You would notice if you watch me run, there's not like my right arm looks a lot more, call it normal, but it's just a familiar range of motion. The left is a little bit more just swings and holds a little bit low. Um, but I don't think it really makes a difference. If anything, just a little bit mentally, when I was a bit younger going through school, everyone has those things that they're self-conscious about no matter what. So
Yeah, 100%.
that was just something that I was self-conscious about, that plays on your mind. But I think as you grow up, you get a little bit more confident. And yeah, it doesn't, something physical like that definitely doesn't define you as a person. So, um, but yeah, running's a good one because it doesn't really require too much arm work.
Yeah, 100%. Mostly legs, and luckily
Yeah,
you've gotten really quick at it and good at it. So yeah,
yeah, it's good. It's
for
good.
sure.
But yeah, thanks for asking, because I get to talk about it a little bit. But yeah, don't definitely. I was very, very, in the scheme of things, very lucky because, yeah, as I said, there was a good chance that I wouldn't really be able to move that arm properly. So
Yeah,
I had like heaps of um uh just physio stuff for ages when I was young, which really helped. But anyway, yeah.
yeah. Well, interestingly, I'll talk to you more about this off camera and stuff, and maybe in a podcast in the future, I'll talk about
Mm,
it myself. But yeah, I went through something similar to you as well, which I'll go into more detail in another episode and off camera. But yeah, I'll talk
okay.
to you about that soon. But
Cool, cool.
let's also talk about our upcoming kind of season because we've had quite a
Okay.
quiet start to the year. Like we haven't done much. I feel
Yep.
like I've raced a couple times. I guess I've done one trail race where I got a course record, which I'm pretty happy with. But apart from that, I have nothing to write home about. I did a few 5Ks, which I'm not happy with. But yeah, I
What
want
were
to try
they?
and
I
focus
haven't
on
been.
ahead. Oh,
What were those 5Ks?
yeah, I just ran a 15:47 and 15:49 5K,
It's
which I know
passable. It's
isn't too
passable.
bad. But I feel like because I haven't taken a hiatus like you have,
Yep.
I feel like
Yep.
I should be faster because
Mm.
yeah, it was December where I PB'd, early December. And I've done nothing but good training since. So I think logic tells me that I should be in better shape, which is why it was disappointing. But I think you can't always be in peak form, even if you're training well. Like there's ebbs and flows. So I think I needed to, mentally be a little more sensible and understand that I can't always perform at my best. Because like we touched on earlier, I think a lot of factors need to perfectly in line as well to have a good race.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what I'm trying to get over right now mentally and
Yep.
trying to focus on what's ahead. But yeah, I guess talk about what your upcoming plans are because it's a bit similar to last year's race progression, and then I'll talk about my upcoming race plans as well.
Yeah, sure. I've got Sydney 10, which is in 2 days. I think I'm gonna treat the race like obviously I want to race it as best I can, but I don't think I'm not quite where I was this time last year. Just training back up. But I'll probably just try and race it as best I can, essentially. And there's going to be a huge group. It's going to be a huge group of people there. So just latch on. I'll just latch on to some people and see where we go. But then the focus will then probably shift to Gold Coast half, where I'll try my best to do a solid training block towards that and see if I can get back to PB shape, I would say. It was funny recently. I did a few workouts which were drastically different. Like, I feel like my lungs are coming back a little bit, which it just happens out of nowhere. I think yeah, I don't know where that comes from, but anyway, I'll just try and keep that momentum going. And then maybe I want to do a marathon at the end of the year. So I was going to do Berlin, but I keep going back and forth. It's pretty expensive. So I'm just trying to figure out whether or not I do it, but I need to make a decision quick, smart, because obviously flights, accommodation will get expensive. If I don't do Berlin, I hope to do Melbourne Marathon. And the goal with that at the moment, even though the goals change, is to just run it like try and run it well, as opposed to running almost a PB half marathon in the first half and blowing up spectacularly. But yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking about in terms of races. But what about you?
Well, first of all, touching on your marathon a bit, it's
Yeah.
pretty rare for someone to like negative split a marathon these days. I feel like most people positive split by a little
Yeah.
bit. So I think that's
By a
understandable.
little bit.
It's hard one to
By a
bench.
little bit.
Yeah.
But
Or a lot.
I did the mega positive split.
Yeah.
I think I don't know what it was, but it was positive.
Yeah. And my race plans are I got Wings for Life charity run in also 2 days. It's on the same day as Sydney 10. So
Oh
that's
wow, okay.
a few less people that I have to compete with from Australia, which is nice. Because
Yeah.
this is a race that everyone does. It's a charity race. I think last year 160,000 people raced it. But basically there's a car that starts 30 minutes after you start and you have to run away for as long as possible. And every 30 minutes it speeds up. So it gets really hard to run away from it near the end. But your winners usually do around 60 to 65 Ks ish, which is around 346 pace, I believe, average that you have to hold. And yeah, I think that'll be a cool race to do. Dom Bullock, our friend, did really well last year. He won in Sydney, or the event that he did. And worldwide he came 21st. So
which is incredible. Yeah.
I think I want to shoot for a top 50 as well, see how I go. And it'll be pretty exciting because last year's winner, who's Japanese, is in my race in the physical location. So I'm going to have someone to chase, which will be really cool. He's a 209 marathoner, so I'll see how I go. But I think a lot of people know that I like a challenge and I'll always try and cling on no matter who is ahead of me. So
Alex Shaw or a 209 marathoner, either way.
Exactly.
No, that'll be good. That'll be good. So that's your first that'll be you tackling the marathon distance for the first time.
Exactly. I'm not going to count it as my first marathon, but it will be that distance for the first time that I'm going to do it. So it'll be pretty cool. And yeah, I think I'm going to try and hold like 350 pace maybe. and then fade. But as long as I average 407 per kilometer, I will get to 50 or more kilometers. So I think I'm just gonna aim to at least run 407 per K, but ideally most of the Ks before I hit the marathon distance, I want to be doing like 350s or something like that. So
Yeah.
yeah, we'll see how it goes. And then I got a 5K on the track later this month, but it's going to be full of fast Japanese runners. So I'm going to be in the mix with a ton of like 15 low to 15:30 guys. So I think I might be on the back end, but if I can just cling on and they tow me through to a good time, I'll be happy with that. But I'm not sure what kind of shape I'm in. I just can't tell. I haven't done enough predictive workouts and stuff, but hopefully training's going well and I'll PB. But if it doesn't, it's not the end of the world. We'll see how it goes. And then in June, I'm doing this double race where I'm going to race a 10K in the evening and then a half marathon the next morning in Thailand. So it's going to be so humid. I'm only going to race for position. I'm going to try and be as close to first in both, but they have some good prize money and some good prizes in general. So that'll be good.
Nice.
And do you know Walter or have you not met him yet? Walter
I
from No Name
know him
Run Club.
I know him from Run Club, but yeah, I haven't. I'm not
Yeah,
sure if I've met him, to be honest.
good guy. He's quite young as well. I think he's 2 years younger than me, but he runs. Well, he recently broke 16 for the first
Yeah,
time.
I saw
So
that. It's crazy impressive.
yeah, so he's a young gun, and he's booked his flights to Thailand as well. So it'll be me versus him, and it'll be quite
Oh,
fun. So that should be good. And yeah, we're gonna stay in the same villa, so we're gonna vlog our experience, and you'll see it all on YouTube, which should be pretty cool.
oh, that'll be good. I'm looking forward to it.
But yeah, speaking of YouTube, like, you should join YouTube one day because I know you're a big fan of, yeah, just recording videos and stuff. Because
Oh,
I've seen you do a
mate.
couple.
Why would you bring up the vlog? I got to take that one down. The Gold Coast. It was. I don't know if I put the one up with Mum and I. Can't remember if I did. Um, yeah. Where the podcast is on YouTube. Um, yeah, I don't know how I go at vlogging. Whenever I've appeared on your vlog, I kind of just talk. Yeah, just be an absolute idiot. So it would be more of the same if I was on YouTube. So I probably wouldn't want to put people through that.
I surprisingly got a lot of good feedback when you and Dom are on my channel at the same time.
Okay.
Yeah, I think people do like you. You're a well-respected person in the community, so it's
Okay,
good.
that's good to know. Thanks. You can remind me as
Yeah.
much as you want as well.
I think my dream video would be for me, you and Dom to be in top shape one day, like all in really good shape, and we do
Yeah,
like a 30K tempo or something with someone on the bike filming. Like that would be sick.
that'll be
And we're
good. We could
just
probably
talking and
make that.
joking.
We could probably make that
Yeah.
happen. Hopefully, we're all yeah, I don't know, towards the marathon time, or like towards the back end of the year.
Yeah.
My plan's to be fit, but we'll see how that goes.
Uh,
Dom's always keeps a good level of fitness, and it's really easy for him to get back into fitness when he takes a little bit of time off. So you never know.
Yeah, I saw Dom's caption recently on Strava. It was something like, I got 50 days to get fit. This is day
Yeah.
one. And then he's done like
Yeah.
40 minutes at sub 350 pace on his first day back.
That's
So
Dom.
yeah, he's
He
just
just
fit. Yeah.
yeah.
But yeah, I guess we'll wrap it up here because I think we're approaching an hour. But it's been a good episode. I think we touched on, your progression a bit and yeah, your upcoming races, a bit about the shoulder as well.
Yeah.
And yeah, your hiatus as well. So it was a pretty good episode where we touched on a bit of everything. And yeah, I'm sure I'll get you on the podcast again
Yeah.
at some point. I might even get you and Dom on at the same time one day as well.
That'll be like
Yeah.
I don't know what to make it. It'd be like a Chiefs and yeah, that'll be
Collab.
yeah.
Yeah.
That'll be fun. No, I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Well,
Thanks for inviting me
but
on.
one last question.
Yeah.
How did it feel to not be the host of the podcast once and be the guest?
It was weird because I feel like I'm very conscious that I'll just keep rambling on, but I guess thankfully I can lean on the fact that was the whole point of the thing. So I hope it was good. I did enjoy sharing a little bit of the story. It was nice to actually look back because I hadn't gone through my Strava, so I didn't have the chance to A, check how long I'd actually been running, and B, like realize how quick the progression was.
Yeah.
Yeah, which was nice to go back and then obviously you reflect on on the journey so far, and yeah, it was good. I appreciate it.
Yeah, a lot of the times I'm focused on like now and what's ahead. So I don't take enough time to reflect sometimes and just see, how far I've come. Because yeah, I'm running thresholds at my PB pace last year. Or sorry, like 2 years ago kind of thing, which is
Yeah,
insane to think.
that's insane. That's
Yeah,
insane. I
so
think I never thought I'd break 40 minutes in the 10K, to be honest. Like that was the big when I started, that was like the big target. And then Dom was always like, we always have this joke of that's proper running, and it just keeps changing. The definition of proper running just keeps changing. But yeah, it's fun. Just keep it going, keep enjoying it. The main thing for me is to um hopefully just keep enjoying the sessions I'm doing and be more involved in Delta and just have fun with it.
cool. Well, thank you for coming on, and we'll see you all in the next episode. Thank you.
Thank you, mate. Thanks, and congrats on the podcast, and keen to hear more episodes. I don't know if I'll listen to mine, but I'm keen to hear who you bring on.
Thank you.
Thanks, buddy. Thanks.